Ashibatu and his amiable wife here present, the celebrant and national leader of Progressive Congress, His Excellency Bola Tinubu, and his amiable wife, distinguished Senator Tinubu. Your Excellencies, the state governors here present, members of the National Assembly, former governors, honorable ministers, my lords, spiritual and temporal, your royal majesties and highnesses, governors-elect here present, distinguished invited guests, gentlemen of the press, good morning, everyone. It is my profound pleasure to welcome you all to this 11th Bola Tinubu Colloquium. As I welcome you all to this event, I ask you to join me in wishing a very happy birthday to the man for whom we have all gathered today. A man of high political dexterity, the dogged national leader of our great party, the All Progressives Congress, and a man of undoubted courage and political acumen. This year's colloquium is coming at a time when Bola Tinubu has spearheaded our party to victory in the general
It's coming at a time when Bola Tinubu has spearheaded our party to victory in the general elections at the Federal, National Assembly, Governorship, and State Assembly elections. This colloquium is coming at a time when the APC has spread its progressive tentacles even further in the country. And this colloquium is coming at a time when Nigerians are eagerly looking forward to the next level in progressive policies, economic growth, social welfare, and increased national security. The theme of this colloquium, Next Level, Work for People, is perfectly conceived as it fits the moment. We are all expectant, and we can feel the next level unfolding. Our country is on the threshold of greatness because for the first time since our independence, we will have successive administrations of a progressive and visionary government, a government of integrity, a government whose sole interest is the well-being of Nigeria and Nigerians. We are lucky to be here in these exciting times, in a time when our country will be led by selfless individuals who have the progress and prosperity of our people as their major objective. And we are here today because Bola Tinubu has been a very key part of this story. We are here not only to celebrate him, but to celebrate the incoming dawn in Nigeria. We are here to celebrate the next level in Nigeria, where Nigerians will be served and given what is due to them. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, and all our distinguished guests, once again, I welcome you all, and I thank you for honoring our invitation. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to acknowledge Our Excellency, distinguished Senator Tinubu, the wife of our celebrant, who had so much color to everything, planning for this colloquium and everything else that pertains to this event. So we have, from a thematic perspective, a multimedia presentation that gives you a preview to what's possible at the next level. The next level, as you know, suggests progress. It suggests moving up a notch higher, a step higher. So we've put together a presentation that takes bits and pieces of all the programs that the All Progressive Congress has put forward as their priority and plans for the next 4 years. Multimedia, please.
There's something for everybody at the next level. Our children, our youth, our old, our women, our men. The artisan, the entrepreneur, the producer, the trader all go higher in the next level. Next level is about jobs, millions of it, and power. Jobs in agriculture, technology, the creative sector, school feeding, and industrialization. Next level is about people and money, its growth and funding for millions of entrepreneurs, artisans, traders, tailors, hairdressers, taxi drivers, and others. Next level connects people, goods, and opportunities by rail from Lagos to Ibadan and Kano and back. To and fro from coast to coast, Lagos to Calabar. The trains will go from Port through the southeast to every state capital therein, through the north central and Maiduguri. The trains in Eastern Line will stretch. Next level is power to people in the markets. Clean, uninterrupted light, powering shops, blenders and grinders, energizing the economy and also our education. Next level brings all the regulators, CAC, NAFDAC, SUN, ETC, under one roof in each senatorial district, simplifying government procedures for businesses and enabling industrial parks and production centers for businesses. Next level means every child counts and is trained and skilled for a digital and civic-oriented future under the banner of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, STEAM, into coding, animation, and robotics. All our teachers in primary and secondary schools retrained to train our children. 10,000 schools each year remodeled for the new level model of classrooms to impart our country's future in a knowledge economy. An inclusive future where all can access healthcare. Next level is where our women and youth are given the responsibility to shape and mold the future and govern. Next level is internet for all and techies. Today points to the future and the next level. We are all going higher. Next level.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our first segment will look at industrialization as a focus area. Now, we are looking at industrialization because it's pivotal to Nigerians' long-term development, and broadening and deepening the manufacturing sector is key to enhancing any sort of growth that we aspire to. So we are looking backwards to look forward. And in the past 4 years, the government has conceived the idea of special economic zones. We have also a speaker who has worked extensively in this area, and he is going to shed some light on what the 4 years has put forward, and also how it connects to the next level priority for the 4 years that are ahead of us. But before we go into that, we have an explainer video that shows you what the special economic zones are about. So please, can we go to multimedia now? SEZ in 60 seconds.
SEZs in 60 seconds. Developing special economic zones, SEZs, is a key aspect of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration's strategy to diversify the economy and achieve growth. Recently, the federal government set up NSE-ZCO Limited as a vehicle for participating in public-private partnerships in local and foreign private investors to develop new special economic zones all over the country. the federal government has signed investment agreements with Afrexim Bank, Bank of Industry, and the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. The other investment partners are African Development Africa Finance Corporation, the SECs offer world-class infrastructure and facilities at competitive costs. The projects in the pilot phase include Eyimba Economic City, Funtua Cotton Cluster, and Lekki Model Industrial Park. On the project Mine, or Made in Nigeria for Export, Nigeria is being positioned as the preeminent manufacturing hub in sub-Saharan Africa. As a leading global and regional export market, Nigeria will see manufacturing's share of GDP rise to 20%, generating $30 billion in annual export earnings and creating 1.5 million new jobs, all by 2025.
So our first speaker is a leading and pioneering light in private equity in Nigeria and indeed Africa. Although qualified as a medical doctor, Capital Alliance, one of Nigeria's leading private equity firm. Join me, make welcome the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Okechukwu Enelama.
His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by His Excellency Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is here with his amiable wife, Mrs. Dolapo Osinbajo. Our celebrant, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, here with his amiable wife, Senator Oluremi Tinubu. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you will permit me not to recognize everybody that is here, given that we want to get on with the business of the day. We thought that to kick off this presentation, or to kick off the proceedings today, it would be nice to actually share something we have done, something that has been conceived, and it's now in implementation. You will agree with me that given that the colloquium has been going on and that this is the 11th edition, it's also good to reflect on what we have done that is the basis for the next level we're talking about. And we believe that what we're about to share with you will, at full implementation, literally transform Nigeria. The good news is that the foundations have been laid, and as the explainer video showed, all the critical elements required to make this a success are already in place. So in my view, what we are looking at now, the process of time, just sticking to the knitting, sticking to the policy, sticking to the implementation, and I am 100% certain the results will follow. So permit me to then take you through a brief presentation on what we have done, starting from the vision or that it came from, and then going all the way to. Now, we're all familiar with the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which is the anchor economic program of this government. That program is very people-centric, and we think that the three objectives are very fundamental and make all the sense. We are focused on growth, investing in our people, and building a competitive economy. And that's really the thrust of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. If you then focus on the theme of industrialization, which is one of the major priorities of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, we believe that industrialization, properly implemented, will achieve significant job creation and create also the relevant social investments by freeing up capital that can be invested in social sectors like healthcare and education, and will be truly transformative because it will move us from a resource and agrarian economy to manufacturing and services. Let me say that, for every manufacturing job that is created, experts tell us you create 5 to 20 indirect jobs. So there is a multiplier effect to the strategy we're about to share with you. That in creating 1.5 million jobs, we think it will lead to anywhere from 7.5 million to perhaps even 30 million jobs that can be created. The other point to make is that the vision we are sharing with you and the plan is something that has been done by other countries. It is our view that if we follow the path that others have followed successfully, we'll get the same result. I remember His Excellency, who as you know is a minister of the world, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, he used to tell us that the proverb, experience is the best teacher, actually says experience is the best teacher for a fool. In other words, if you want to experience it yourself before you do it, then you're not being wise in learning from those who have gone before you. Countries like China, South Korea, Malaysia, and even in Africa, countries like Ethiopia and Morocco have adopted and implemented the strategies we're talking about to great effect. And it is our view that as we implement it, we will develop local industry, technology capabilities, and competitiveness. And we will also create multiple jobs, like I alluded to earlier, and of course, create world-class infrastructure. What then is Project Mine all about? Project Made in Nigeria for Export. Let me make the point up front that when we say Project Made in Nigeria for Export, it will also serve our needs locally. But we believe that if you are manufacturing for export, you typically will also be competitive locally, because it means that it's like somebody who's going to compete in the Olympics. If you were to play in a local tournament, you obviously will win if he's a winner in the international tournament. What are the objectives of Project Made in Nigeria for Export? Number one is to boost the share of manufacturing to our gross domestic product to 20%. If you look at most of the countries that have achieved full employment or meaningful employment, manufacturing is a major part of the GDP. In Nigeria, it's only 10%. We believe we must push for manufacturing to move up to closer to 20%. We believe we can create, like we said, at least 1.5 million jobs over the next 5 to 10 years as Project Mine is fully implemented. And these are the direct jobs. And remember, for each direct job, you create 5 to 20 indirect jobs, which means that you could literally create an additional 7.5 to 30 million extra jobs based on these direct jobs. And we believe it will generate up to $30 billion US in export earnings, which would then become meaningful compared to what we're earning in oil. And of course, this will also improve our comparative advantage, because a lot of our products today are not being fully utilized to achieve that advantage. And most importantly, we can adopt local models for achieving global best standards. Let me deal with the main activity areas of Project Mine. Project Mine will deliver results in at least 4 major areas for us. First, it will create a supportive, enabling environment for special economic zones. Let me make the point that the projects that the government is going to work on with its partners are meant to be demonstration projects or model projects, meaning that we expect many other projects to take off and are taken off by the private sector. So this is why we think that creating the enabling environment for all is the singular most important objective we actually have. Now, we intend to fast track the development of a couple of pilot model special economic zones, and we'll show you where those zones are to be located. We also intend to demonstrate effectiveness in public-private partnerships. Already, like I said, these things have been done, and some of the points were made in the explainer video. And then finally, we plan to build new world-class zones that will be greenfield once the pilots are successful. The other thing to note about Project Made in Nigeria for export is that it's going to be spread nationwide. In other words, it's going to be geographically representative. All parts of the country will be fully represented, and we'll share examples with you. Like we said, we're going to include new projects, in other words, greenfield projects, brownfield projects, meaning that projects that exist today that want to move to the next level. The 2 examples being the industrial parks in Calabar and in Kanu that we want to take to the next level. And then, of course, we're doing studies for the next generation of projects already. Let me now talk a bit about what we have already achieved with Project Mine to demonstrate that it has moved from theory to practice or to implementation. First, we have established a platform company that would house these initiatives that we're talking about, called the Nigeria Special Economic Zones Investment Company, or Nigeria SESCO for short. Now, this Nigeria SESCO is a public-private partnership that will operate to world-class standards, and we are committed to making sure that it will meet those standards. And it's going to be jointly owned by the government, federal government, through Ministry of Finance Incorporated, MOFI, and our partners, African Exim Bank, Bank of Industry, Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, African Finance Corporation, and the African Development Bank. All these partners have either signed up or are completing their processes. Some of you may remember that on February 8th, I remember it was a Friday, the president himself in the presidential chambers, and in the council chambers, launched this project where this signing ceremony took place, and it was well covered by the media and well reported by the media. Therefore, we're talking about something that has actually already happened rather than something that would happen. And of course, Special Economic Zone will leverage our own funding to attract funding from others. So the whole idea is to have a multiplier effect, and we believe that we're well on our way to doing that. Who are some of the partners that are helping to realize this vision of the Special Economic Zones and NSESCO in particular? This slide shows you some of the partners. You will notice that all the partners are world-class partners. Starting from some of the anchor tenants. When the president went to China, the chairman of Rui Group met with him during the last trip to China that the president went, and committed to investing $2 billion in the textile sector, in the cotton, textile, and garment sector of Nigeria. And that those discussions are now at a point of implementation. We also have companies that are already operating in Nigeria, like Flour Mills of Nigeria, that will be an anchor tenant in some of the centers in terms of agribusiness. Now, in terms of the development advisors and consultants, we have Sobona Jorong, which is a world-leading company out of Singapore. We have DA, which came out originally from the Middle East, but is now global. And of course, we have McKinsey & Company, which is, as you know, is a world-class consulting company. And then the legal advisors are the leading local law firm, Aluko and Oyebode. All these companies are fully engaged and have implemented what is required of them at one level or the other. Let me now share some of the examples that we have already worked on, just to, as I begin to conclude the presentation. First is Enyimba City, which is a city that is an industrial city in the southeastern part of the country. It occupies over 9,500 hectares of land. And just to put it in perspective, 9,500 hectares of land will be the equivalent of 6 average-sized cities. Now, the master planning, feasibility studies, and detailed design for the phase 1 of the project is already concluded. The partners that will build it are already in place, people like Group 5 of South Africa, Bilal of the United Emirates, and China Harbour from China, and so on. And also, it has a dedicated IPP, independent power plant, that will serve it uninterrupted power. And the government has already entered into a partnership with the Enyimba City, where we are the co-investors with the sponsors and the state government of Abia, the Abia state government, the federal government, and then, of course, all these are partners are partnering with us, from Afro-Exim to African Finance Corporation to Bank of Industry to Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, and so on and so forth. So this Enyimba City believes that the phase 1 alone will create at least 625,000 jobs, and the implementation is already well underway. The next one to share with you is Lekki Model Industrial Park. And I want to specially thank the governor of Lagos State, Governor Ambode, because he actually fast-tracked the availability of this land, 1,000 hectares of land in the Lekki Free Zone, to make it available. Once he had the story, he said that Lekki would like to participate in it. Now, this land is meant to be for, world-class export-oriented manufacturing, from things like cotton to agro-processing to other areas. And we're looking at the northeast corridor of the Lekki Free Zone. And this site already has undergone full feasibility studies, and we're now in negotiations with the partners who will work with us to take this over. The third example I want to share with you is the Funtua Cotton Cluster, Katsina. Now, Funtua has the largest aggregation of cotton ginneries in Nigeria, and is the traditional home of cotton ginning. The cluster will aggregate cotton from over 800,000 farmers in northern Nigeria and become the largest integrated cotton ginning, spinning, and weaving complex in sub-Saharan Africa. It will reestablish the cotton value chain from seed cotton to finished fabric and provide feedstock for domestic and export-oriented garment manufacturing. And you will agree with me that this is one thing we need to bring back, the whole cotton, textile, and garment sector, which used to be a pride of Nigeria. And one of the lessons we learned from the Ruyu group when we met with them in China, they said to us that the reason we have struggled with our cotton is because some of the value chain pieces were missing. And they said it's like trying to build something where there is a river and you don't have a bridge. And they are committed to working with us to fill all the gaps by making the heavy investment I talked about earlier of $2 billion. So in conclusion, you can see from this one example of the reforms that this government has undertaken. You will agree with me that we are building for the next level a Nigeria of high quality manufacturing and service jobs, growth and opportunity, and shared prosperity and a better life for millions of our people. The good news about this is that this is not theory. We're not talking about feasibility studies or strategies, but something that the government has actually implemented. I have several of my colleagues from the Cabinet, Federal Executive Council, who were supportive and who have helped to not only pass this particular program to be implemented and who have seen the implementation. So again, I want to thank you for listening, and I want to promise you that if we pull together, that we'll see the Nigeria of our dreams. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. He's slightly taller than I am, so we have to bring it down to my level. Thank you, Dr. Okechukwu Enelama. Thank you for that presentation on Nigeria's industrialization policy. Now, the next level is not just a slogan. It is, but it is far more than just a mere slogan. It's an expression of intent, philosophy, and policy. The next level is focused on people. And while having special economic zones at these 6 regional centers is an excellent idea to spur industrialization, we also believe that it's important that prosperity comes closer to people. So at the next level, there's an idea that this industrialization that will catalyze processing, local processing, and production can reach as many Nigerians as possible. We have with us someone who will give us a view of how they've run similar programs in other African countries. Our next speaker, Professor Banji Oyelaran Oyeyinka, is currently the Chief of Staff to the President of the African Development Bank and is also the Special Advisor on Industrialization to the President of the AFDB. In his capacity, he's coordinating programs in about 15 countries, and he also comes with extensive experience gathered in the United Nations system and also within academia. So please join me make welcome Professor Oyelaran Oyeyinka, who will be speaking on our next topic, which is a focus on the special production and processing facilities, sharing ideas on similar African programs. Please, Professor Oyelaran Oyeyinka.
Thank you. Excellencies, President Muhammad Buhari, represented by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, our celebrant for today, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. I congratulate you on your birthday, and I wish you many more years on this earth in the service of our country. I'm asked to speak about next level industrialization. I speak to this in a few minutes because it's a conversation we should have for hours and hours. But I'm just going to outline what this is about, agro-industrialization, and exactly what challenges it's expected to meet, and what examples we have in a few African countries that I'm assigned to drive for now. Sorry. Okay. Now, there are critical challenges for all generations, for all nations throughout history. Three basic challenges. One is the idea of empowering the people of every nation. How do you raise living standards of our people? How do you improve their quality of life? Whenever you have a society where people are jobless, where people are poor, you have problems. So the theme for this conference, for me, is apt. The first condition to empower people economically to change their status to the new level, to raise their income, is to provide them with jobs. Decent jobs that will eradicate poverty and hunger in the land. As we know, unemployment lowers growth, it lowers productivity, and often it leads to cycles of economic inefficiency. So we need to aim for full employment in our society. The third goal, in addition to income and employment, is equity. For us to ensure equity in society, we need to change the dynamics between rural and urban areas. We need to change the dynamics within urban areas itself. At the African Development Bank, the big issue that we have been talking about is using agro-industrial processing zones as a solution to generate high-level jobs. The previous speaker has spoken a lot about economic zones, so I don't have to speak about it. I'll just focus on what agro-industrialization is about. Right now, globally, this is an $8 trillion business, employing 40 million people all over the world. As you know, agro-industrialization is actually a subset of manufacturing. So the manufacturing sector he talked about, this agro-industrialization is a subset of it. It also includes textiles and leather and so forth. Now, what we see is that the countries that have made money over the years, all the countries that have become great, have also never left agriculture. The same countries that manufacture aircrafts, they manufacture spacecrafts, they manufacture cars and so forth, have also been the same countries that have the most presence in agribusiness. If you see the graph on top here, the United States is leading in agribusiness. Agriculture, as we know it in the West, is more of agribusiness. It contributes about $1 trillion to US GDP every year. Same with China, same with Netherlands. So basically what these countries have done is move away from subsistence agriculture and actually industrialize agriculture. In Africa, the research we have both at the African Development Bank and the World Bank, is that by 2030, agribusiness will become a $1 trillion economy, a $1 trillion market. And Nigeria should get into this space. Now, what is the strategy? How does Nigeria get into it? What we are proposing is to set out agro-industrial zones all over the country. My colleague, the minister, had talked about the 3 zones, but the agro-industrial zones, as we know, it spans all areas of our country, all the corridors of our country. The vehicle that we are proposing is well known. We are using it in Ethiopia. We are setting it up in South Africa. As a matter of fact, next month we are having a whole-day retreat with President Kenyatta in Nairobi for the setting up of their 6 agro-industrial zones. South Africa wants to set up about 40 of them. We are prioritizing 9. And I know Nigeria has also sort of identified a number of corridors across the countries. So these particular agro-industrial zones, the objectives are well stated here: to expand food production, to add value to our raw materials, to promote local and regional investment, to bring infrastructure and crowd in anchor investors into this particular geographic space. Now, the function of these particular zones are set out as above. Basically, you are going to have, this way. Basically, you are going to have all the things you need for high-value production: cold storage units, quarantine facilities, quality control laboratories, R&D, quality certificate, raw material storage, control and modified atmosphere, like you have in many of the emerging economies. Recently, we were in South Korea, and I was really astounded to note that South Korea, advanced as it is, has over 400 agro-industrial processing zones. In 2017 alone, South Korea exported goods from those zones worth $11.5 billion. Not from cars, not from computers, not from semiconductors, from agro-processing zones. So this is a space where Nigeria has competitive advantage. We are supporting many countries, and we are working with the government of Nigeria also. Identified all of these zones in our country, from Sokoto to Zamfara to Katsina to Bauchi. There is no corridor in Nigeria that doesn't have something that we can process. I don't want to give you figures now. I'm hoping that we're going to have more detailed discussion with government to sit down with them and work out, in addition to what was spoken of earlier, in all corridors of our countries, whether in the south, east, north, central, all of them, based on this particular criteria. We identify them based on land production capacity, the estimation of their net marketable surplus, agro-commodities processing, and also inclusivity and sustainability to ensure that we generate equity. Now, one of the notable things about the zones that we are establishing in these countries is also the establishment of what we call skills enhancement zones. For example, in Ethiopia, the number of skills that have been developed over the last 3 years that this program started was over 800,000. We expect that by 2023, there will be direct jobs over 200,000 and indirect jobs of over 300,000, based on the initial investment of about $85.7 million. Through the partnership with the government of Ethiopia and African Development Bank, we're able to also crowd in other investors from Korea, the European Union, and so forth. And we are hoping the same thing will happen in Nigeria. Nigeria is a large market. Nigeria is a very important country, and we should not be left behind going forward. Now, what is the theory of change for the next level? In summary, there are, briefly, number one is production expansion and production enhancement. In other words, we need to plant more, we need to add more acreage to the land that we are cultivating. Nigeria has 90% of all its arable land, compared with Chad, for example. Only 3% of the land in Chad is arable. So we are blessed. We have everything we need to go to this next level. The next thing that the zones do is to create proximity. When there is proximity, you reduce transaction costs. You bring small farmers together with large farmers. You bring processors together with aggregators. And you bring them into this particular geographic space in a way that you are able to generate price competitiveness. We are going to target a situation where losses of goods through lack of transportation and all that will be reduced to the minimum. And of course, this leads to progress and to prosperity. Now, one of the most important issues for all of the countries where we are working is the nature of the governance. the governance system. There's been a vehicle that had been set up. It's very similar to what has been set up in Ethiopia. But what we know is that this is a multi-sectoral, inter-ministerial type thing. It's not just agriculture. It's not just industry. It spans all of those two, including, of course, the Treasury. So we are going to be proposing certain governance structures for the government, like we did for Ethiopia and also for Kenya. I hope that we are able to talk about this in more detail. My last word here is that all countries that became prosperous, they started with agriculture, but they got wealthy, not by staying on subsistence agriculture, but they move on to agro-industrialization. I believe Nigeria will get there. I believe we can do it. I can see a future for our country. The $1 trillion business that we are targeting for that is being manifested up to 2030 in Africa. If Nigeria can just get 20% of that, we'll be on our way to eradicating poverty and hunger from our land. I want to thank you very much. God bless you all, and God bless Nigeria.
Now it rises. We are now going to just take a look at how to power our industrialization plans. Without electricity and power, it's impossible to have any sort of industrialization policy implemented. So our next speaker, who is the Managing Director of the Transmission Company of Nigeria and also Chairman of the West African Power Pool, will shed some light on what the power objectives for the next level will be. But before that, we are going to quickly look at a multimedia presentation, even as he walks to the podium to speak. And just to announce that all our speakers have no more than 10 minutes to speak, and we are entreating to everyone who's standing behind to go to their seats now, or they might be escorted by security. It's the colloquium, and we have gathered to just get these ideas, and it's best done in a conducive environment where people are seated and listening. So please, if you're standing and you're behind the hall, you will be escorted out of the hall if you don't proceed to your seat. So we will now make welcome Mr. U.G. Mohammed. But even as he comes to the podium, the multimedia presentation, Next Level Power.
Decades of bad policy making and underinvestment in the power sector led to epileptic power supply. That is changing. We are providing off-grid, clean, and uninterrupted power to 9 of our markets and schools under the Energizing Economy and Energizing Education schemes. Just ask householders in Surat, Sahumari, Ariaria, and other markets. There has also been a 50% expansion in grid capacity from 5,000 megawatts to 7,125 megawatts. As an example, we will have a zero-tolerance policy to estimated bill, even as our generation moves to 11,000 megawatts. We will reach 300 markets and business clusters with uninterrupted and clean power under the Energizing Economies initiative, just as we reach 9 universities. We will enable off-grid standalone solar solutions with our $550 million rural electrification program, supported by the World Bank and African Development Bank, that creates a pipeline of either local investments and financial incentive, home by home, market by market, workplace by workplace. We are all getting powered up and moving.